Good morning, sports fans. You're listening to 96.9 FM WHYR-LP Baton Rouge Community Radio.
This is Eric Hatfield along with Coach Perry Daniels, and we are here to bring you the latest, the greatest, the best, and the most entertaining in high school, college, and professional sports. You are listening to Louisiana All American Sports. Ooh, ain't nobody dope as me. Good morning, Baton Rouge. It's another Saturday morning here on Louisiana All American Sports on 96.9 FM WHYR-LP Baton Rouge Community Radio. I am Eric Hatfield.
And I'm Coach Perry Daniels.
And it is October. It is one of the best months of the year for sports. Everything is up in the air. We have football. We have Major League Baseball playoffs. NBA season gets started at the end of the month, as well as NHL. All kinds of sports are up in the air. But right now, it's a Saturday for football, and that's what we're going to bring a whole lot of to you today here on Louisiana All American Sports.
Eric, keep in mind, man, we got a lot of baseball to discuss today, too.
We sure do. The playoffs, I'll tell you, it's been like baseball heaven the last week. I mean, it's been starting with the wild card matchups last week, and these first couple of games of these division series have all been just fantastic. I mean, kind of weird and strange in some ways in some of the games, and we'll get to that later. But it's been baseball heaven. It's always football heaven. It is a great month of the year, probably the best month of the year to be a sports fan. So, Perry, how are things in your neck of the woods this morning?
Hey, man, they are not very happy in this part of the country.
Yeah. Perry is in D.C. taking care.
I take that back. In the close proximity, they're not very happy. But just to the northeast, Baltimore, they're extremely happy.
Oh, they should be thrilled. They mashed Detroit a couple of nights, 2 days ago, and then yesterday afternoon they stole one from the Detroit Tigers. They are flying high in Baltimore. It ain't so good to be a DC fan though. The Redskins are horrendous, and the Nationals couldn't pull it together yesterday, and they're going to be on the ropes in Game 2. It's like I said, it's that time of the year. There's everything going on. If you like sports, this is the time for you. There's no getting around that.
All right, but let's start off as we normally do with our high school report, and hopefully you're up to speed on some of this, man. I do know that the McKinley Panthers went down to New Orleans and played Old Perry Walker, the number 2 ranked team in Class 4A last night. And McKinley had an opportunity to win this game, and they didn't quite pull it out. They lost a very close one, 21-20.
Yeah, very close game down there. That score really jumped out to me when I saw it on the Twitter page. But I'll tell you what, man. McKinley Panthers look much more potent this year than last year. Last season, they looked like they struggled. They still look like they struggled just to hang in close games. They're winning battles at the line of scrimmage this year, which I think is a big difference that you're noticing. And then, they're playing close. They're winning games. They beat Central big. They've beaten other opponents big. They beat Opelousas really, really big. And now they went down and played, like you said, a very good opponent in Landry Walker, and it was. He could have gone either way. This is a very different McKinley team than we've seen last year. We saw a lot of McKinley on LouisianaAllAmericanSports.com, and you will be able to see the McKinley Panthers as they host their district rival, East Ascension, next Friday at 7 p.m. on LouisianaAllAmericanSports.com. That's going to be a real test to see how far this team has come, Perry.
Absolutely right, man. East Ascension did a great job last night of pulling off an upset over Lutcher. So they're on a roll. It's going to be interesting to see who can pull that game out next week down in South Baton Rouge. And that should be a good game for positioning for that tough District 5A competition, man. You've got to figure the Catholic High is favorite to win that district, but you never know what may happen.
No, you don't. And the thing is, with 5A, that is such a tough district. Every game, every game always counts in football, but every game could tip any one game between any of those teams could tip the district winner in a number of directions. I mean, last year, if I remember, it was either a three-way tie or we were close to having a three-way tie at the top of that district. It was very close right down to the very end of the season. So, that district's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a fun game next week. So if you can't come down to the bottom to McKinley High School, please join us on Louisiana All American Sports.com. In other high school action, yesterday's Louisiana All American Sports.com game of the week, we went across the river to White Castle, Louisiana. They hosted our friends from near Lake Charles from Calcasieu Parish. White Castle hosted the Iowa Yellow Jackets. Really good competitive district 8-1-8 team in White Castle. They were, nipped for the district crown on the final Friday of the regular season last year. Last night, they swung it out. They went back and forth from a team in a higher classification. Iowa, I believe, is a 3A school, and a lot of good running backs on both sides of the ball. But at the end of the day, Dontrell Taylor, the running back for the White Castle Bulldogs, was just incredible. He had over 200 yards. I believe he had either 2 or 3 touchdowns. I don't have the stats in front of me in a critical 2-point conversion. And White Castle just seemed like they were one step ahead of the Iowa Yellow Jackets the entire time. And it looks like it's going to come down to them. And Perry, was it West Feliciana last year that won that district crown?
Well, no.
Was it West St.
John?
West St. John. Yeah, I kept saying West St. John, and it looks like it could be another very close race there at the top. They look very strong, and heading into district play, they're going to be a formidable foe.
Absolutely, Eric, and I have on the line Coach Lamar Thomas of the White Castle Bulldogs. And he can clear up how many touchdowns that player had last night.
All right, Perry, you the man. Coach Thomas, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, and you?
Oh, fantastic. Look, thank you so much for having us in your home last night and letting us showcase your team's talents to our audience at LouisianaAllAmericanSports.com.
Okay, it was our pleasure.
Well, let's talk about the game last night. That was a heck of a game. First of all, let's talk about a couple of the standouts in that game. Dontrell Taylor, talk about him.
Well, Dontrell Taylor has been playing well for us, all year, and as he did last year, he's a very talented young football player for us, and he's been our leading rusher for the past 2 years.
Did he have, I don't know if you have the stat sheet in front of you, but we were speculating he had to be over 200 yards last night. What do we have his stat line?
I don't remember what the exact numbers are, but he had a little over 200 yards. But he had over 200 yards, and he had 3 touchdowns, and I want to say a 2-point conversion.
Oh, he was something else to watch. Now, also, you had another running back who seemed to deliver some burst in the middle, and that was Daniel Edwards. Can we talk about his role and his contribution?
Yeah, Daniel Edwards is another young running back that's coming into his own. He's more of a power type running back. Big strong kid. He's a 200-pound kid. And he's kind of coming into his own. He has really times where he shows some really good things on the field, and he plays some defense for us too.
Oh, yeah, I saw you had a couple of tackles in there last night. Now your linebacker, Jones, number 7, I can't remember his first name, but he seemed like Jared Jones. He seemed like he was getting to the run. He seemed like he was getting through the line very quickly, constantly last night. We had remarked that once Iowa began throwing the football, he was really getting pressure on the quarterback. Iowa didn't pass very much until they had no choice. But can we just very briefly talk about what you observed in his performance last night and how he fits into the overall scheme?
Well, basically, Jared's a very important part of our scheme. Jared plays linebacker. He plays Sam linebacker for us, and he also plays some defensive end for us. And so he's versatile. And and so when we want to blitz and stuff and get after people, we want to do some things. We felt like that we could blitz him at times, and he was very instrumental in being able to do that. And once he got his timing down, the timing down on what we wanted to do, he started really showing up in the backfield for us.
You're go ahead, Perry. Go.
Well, I'm just wondering what Coach sees for the future of going into the district race, and who are the power players that will challenge White Castle in the 1A classification and when come playoff time?
Okay, well, basically going in a district, we have two very good district foes. They're both playoff caliber teams and championship caliber teams at Ascension Catholic and also West St. John. Everybody knows about West St. John. They've been our biggest rival in district and well-coached football team as far as our district. And we feel like the pre-district schedule we play kind of prepares us physically for what's to come. And being young, playing some tough physical ball games and being able to stand up and withstand those physical larger schools that has more depth, that probably have a little bit more depth than we do. It'll help us, to be able to match up with people doing district.
Okay, and when it comes playoff time and they separate the select teams from what I call the traditional teams, you won't have to deal with the Ascension Catholics of the world. Who then do you think will be your biggest obstacle?
Well, I think in single A, the stronger, you got West St. John that's usually right up there, and they're in our district. You have a team like Mangum. We lost to Mangum. West St. John lost to Mangum. So, right now, teams like Mangum, they're the king of the, they're the king of the hill until we can beat them. Then in Haynesville, you got them. They won it. Those are the teams. And then I'm gonna tell you a team that's pretty good too. That returned a lot of players and had a huge offensive line is the Beauregard team we played. And the Beauregard team we played in the regional. They're very big, very physical, and they're gonna give people problems because they take their eye out of the ball and they just smash it and come right at you. And they probably got as big an offensive line that I've seen in single A football.
Coach, you have are any of your players being recruited by now by any colleges, and can you tell us which players and by whom?
Well, Chris Major is being highly recruited. He's one of we only have 4 seniors. Mm-hmm. We only have 4 or 5 seniors. Chris Major is being highly recruited as a safety and as an inside receiver. More as a stronger free safety, more as a free safety.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking at him, Coach. He's being looked at by UL and Nickel State is looking at him. Southern's looking at him. He's got, I think Southern Miss is looking at him. He's starting to get some looks at some bigger schools. Okay. I think McNeese is looking at him. He seems like a kid. He has a good body, got good speed.
Good eyes.
He has great range. And he catches the ball well.
Awesome. Anybody else you want to acknowledge from that team?
Ja'Cory Jones is getting some look. I think Southern is looking at him. Nichols is looking at him. Louisiana, I think Louisiana Tech may be looking at him as well. So he's starting to get some bites too. But he's our starting quarterback, but he's going to be recruited probably as a cornerback.
Coach, I guess one final question or observation that we had last night. We said a couple of times late in the game that it looked like, Iowa seems to be a quality football team, but it seemed like for every step they made to try to adjust to you all, I'm talking about their defense, your offense was 1 or 2 steps ahead of them, and it was like a cat and mouse game when they could never catch up to you. Did you make a similar observation, and can you just talk about the offensive game plan? It just seems like they never could adjust to you all at all.
Well, actually, they made it kind of turned into a game of chess.
Mm-hmm.
They made certain moves that were good moves for them to stop what we were doing, and we had to look at what the moves that they made, and we had to change what we did running the ball and blocking scheme wise, to adjust to them because they mixed up the front pretty good on us. They mixed up the front pretty good, and once they change the front, then we got to change the play we run or the way we block it, and then after that, they change again. And then we'd have to change. That's part of coaching, and when you're playing against a good coaching staff, they're not gonna let you. They're not gonna give you the same looks. They let you take advantage of them the whole game by giving them the same look.
Coach, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on our show this morning, and thank you for having us in your house. We'd love to see you guys again if that'll be all right, but we really...
Oh, that'd be great. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you very much, Coach.
So appreciate the show. I noticed you joining us, Coach. Have a great season, man. Good luck to y'all.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
That was Lamar Thomas, head coach of the White Castle Bulldogs, and... Perry, I mean, you could tell that you could just hear the confidence in his voice, and when you see him play, you can see this is a team that really has a chance to go places.
Yeah, man, that's a quality program, year in, year out. They're right up there. It's just, you got to wonder, can they finally get over the hump this year and take on Coach Valdez and his West St. John Rams? They have to go to West St. John this year. I really thought last year was the year they were going to get over that hump, having West St. John at home, and they just couldn't match up against that team. So maybe this is the year.
It should be. It should be a doozy this year. Guys, we should go from the boys to the men now, should we?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, let's talk about, we can talk about the men. Let's, I guess, talk about the Saints, I suppose.
I thought we were going to talk about the men.
Yeah, I know, right? More like the mice last week. Oh, my goodness. The New Orleans Saints went to Arlington, Texas, to Jerry World, where they, up until last Sunday night, dominated the Cowboys in all kinds of ways. Well, Cowboys had a little something for them, dominating the New Orleans Saints, winning 38-17. The Cowboys really dominated in every phase of the game. We just spoke with Coach Thomas a moment ago about cat and mouse games and how his opponent could not seem to adjust to him. Well, the Saints seemed the same way. They could not adjust to any of the Cowboys' offensive game plan. They could not get any pressure on Tony Romo at all. DeMarco Murray had just a free-for-all, running the ball all up and down the Saints' hapless front seven and defense. The Saints offensively could not get much going until the middle of the second half, really, and they actually did cut it to a two-possession game at one point, but we talk about adjustments. The Cowboys made the necessary adjustments, and the Saints tried a very hapless and pathetic fake punt that failed. I could tell at home they were going to run it before they shifted it when they had Brandon Cooks going in motion. Clearly the Cowboys, who are paid to do this, I'm sure spotted it out, and that was all she wrote. The Saints fall to 1-3.
Man, Eric, I happened to watch part of this game, and it is just amazing to me how large of a step backwards that defense has taken from last year to this year. And you have to wonder, anytime you get a new boss, you're on your P's and Q's to make sure that you show him that you belong. And that's what they looked like last year with the new defensive coordinator. And now this year, it seems like they've gotten comfortable with him, and their defense is horrible.
They're on the X's and O's front. Rob Ryan's defenses, when they've been most successful, have been, be it in Cleveland or in Dallas or last year in New Orleans, they are defenses that are based on pressure. His whole scheme revolves around pressure. You get pressure on the quarterback, you force him to make bad throws. You get pressure on the quarterback, his options start to shrink. And last year the Saints piled up a lot of sacks last year. They were near the upper third of the NFL in sacks. This year they only have 5 sacks, and it's showing because the quarterbacks are able to take more time and find their targets downfield, and it's affecting the secondary. I really believe that the pressure or the lack of pressure up front, Junior Gillette just got his big paycheck, and Cam Jordan is on deck. They got to get him paid, but he's not really making the strongest case for himself this year. They are not getting pressure on the quarterback. When the Saints had that little the little 5 minutes of glory last week when they started to cut the score down, they got to Romo a couple of times, and then of course the gates closed again on them. But that defense needs to get pressure on the opposing quarterback in order to help out the secondary. It's not happening, and the results have been disastrous this year.
Well, and not only is it, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the pressure situation, but they can't tackle.
Yeah.
All the broken tackles that the running back for the Cowboys, DeMarco
Murray.
It was just atrocious, man. And now that you have Julius Byrd out for the season, you've got to figure that it's only going to get worse for the Saints.
Yeah, that was first of all, I didn't know the injury was that serious. I was hoping it would not be. That is actually really shocking news to me this morning. I might close the door and cry when we go to the break when I have a chance, but that hurts because that's a secondary that could not afford. He was a key component in what was expected to prop this team up this year, and they're already struggling, and now he's out. That's going to mean that Raphael Bush is going to have to step in. He's a decent role player. He is not going to fill the role that Jarius Byrd was intended to fill. So, but the key, though, again, is that, another thing that the Saints are missing is that locker room leadership. I think the absence of Jabari Greer from that locker room, from that secondary, cannot be understated. Now he's in his 30s. He had a very bad knee injury. He couldn't pick up with any NFL team. I understand that his physical capabilities have probably been diminished. Maybe he can't play again, but that leadership, that pick me up, you cannot tell me that's not a different locker room when you replace Jabari Greer with Patrick Robinson. So the Saints got a lot of challenges. I think it starts up front, but you're right. It goes from, it's literally blocking and tackling issues, fundamental issues, to leadership. That defense is a mess, and the only way to compensate for a bad defense is the offense has got to be crisp. They've got to put up points. Breeze and the Saints had no problem doing that the first few weeks, but they really struggled against the Cowboys defense that isn't that good.
Well, the one thing that may assist that defense is playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That may assist them this week with the Buccaneers being the 30th ranked offense in the league. So maybe, just maybe, we'll see a different team. The Buccaneers are 30th in offense, total offense, and 32nd in passing. So this may be what the Saints need as a remedy to get a W here.
Yeah, there are very few buts in the Saints' woeful start to the season, but the biggest but is that three of their first four games have been on the road. The Saints have always been a very different team inside the Superdome, no matter what. A different team inside the Superdome than they are away from the Dome. And the Buccaneers, while Mike Glennon looked pretty good leading his team down the field in that final drive against the Steelers last week, I still think the Buccaneers have got a lot of holes, a lot of areas to fill up with. I actually think Glennon has some potential long-term, but in the short run, when he comes into the Superdome, he's going to get hit by a swarm of bees. And so I think that the Saints are going to, I've said this now the last 4 weeks, I expect them to win every week, so I could be wrong. But I think they're going to win this week. I don't have the brimming confidence I had 2 weeks ago when they played the Adrian Peterson-less Minnesota Vikings, because they took a clear step back last Sunday. But I'm certainly not going to pick the Buccaneers, that's for sure. So I think the Saints will win tomorrow.
I'm with you on this. I think the Saints will win. It is a division rival game, so I don't think it'll be by a lot of points, even though the Saints, I think as a team, are at least 2 touchdowns better than the Buccaneers. But I've got a feeling we're talking a 7 to 10 point game. I did just hear from the Fixer, just to let you know.
Awesome.
So we will have him shortly.
Okay. Moving around the NFC South, the Carolina Panthers right now, and I have to say this with lightly, the Carolina Panthers appear to be the best team in the NFC South. They have the best record in the NFC South at 2-2, and they appear to be playing the best football in the NFC South, but that's really not a whole heck of a lot to write home about, especially after Steve Smith Sr. and the Baltimore Ravens busted out the whooping stick on them. These Panthers do have a few problems, not the least of which is they're not protecting their quarterback, who's had some ginger ribs throughout most of the season. The Panthers are going to play the Chicago Bears, and the game is going to be in Charlotte. The Bears have been kind of a question mark too. Perry, this is one of those contests that, I don't have a read on it at all. Maybe the Fix could give us some insight, because both of these teams have been all over the dots have been all over the chart, and they're very difficult to connect.
I agree with you. It should be a very competitive game, although these two teams, you never know what you're going to get. Maybe Carolina's going to come out and play inspired football because they're at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to go with the Bears here, though, just because they seem to be more productive offensively than the Panthers.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of piggybacking off of what you said. I'm gonna take the Panthers, but that's only because they're at home, and I definitely wouldn't put a nickel down on this game. I have no read on it either way. I mean, on paper, I think the Bears are the better team, but Cutler can get into some funks sometimes, and they are on the road. The Panthers, though, on a 2-game losing streak, you don't know who's going to show up either. I don't have any read. I'm going to just kind of tip ever so slightly to the home field and pick the Panthers, but a Bears victory, first of all, I'd be very happy because Panthers are in our division, but also it wouldn't surprise me one bit. Also in the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons. Look, Matt Ryan is putting up some good numbers this year, but their defense has been invisible almost the entire year, and they're going to have to go into MetLife Stadium and play the New York Giants, who kind of the Giants are 2-2. They're kind of like that lawnmower, how sometimes you pull the string on that lawnmower, it might be a few years older, maybe it's a little low on gasoline, and it goes and you have to pull it 2 or 3 times, but when you pull that cord, if it's like a John Deere or a Turo, it starts just cutting that grass, and that engine starts kicking and smoking, and that's what the Giants seem to be like the last couple of weeks. They really seem to get their mojo back when they just left little pieces of the Redskins all over FedEx Field, and Eli seems to have gotten his groove back. Victor Cruz seems to have gotten his groove back, both on the dance floor and in the end zone, and Reuben Randall seems to be breaking out a little bit. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Out of the New York Giants so far, with this game being in MetLife and with Atlanta's defense being just not very good, I think the Giants are going to win this game, and they could win very convincingly. This is going to be a very tough challenge for Matt Ryan going into MetLife, especially with it being October now, and the Giants again seeming to have finally found their groove.
Well, I think finding their groove is attributed a lot to playing the team that plays in Washington that is not very good. Here I'm going to take the Falcons just because I don't think that Eli Manning and that offense can compete with the scoring power of the Falcons, even though the Falcons' defense is horrendous.
Yeah, the Falcons not only is the Falcons defense bad, but they're actually nicked up. And looking at the injury report, Will Moore is not going to be playing. He's out actually 8 weeks, it says here, with a shoulder injury. And Will Moore is one of the, I'm not going to say he's a Pro Bowler, but he's definitely a leader on that defense and kind of a staple. Of course, OCU, guys get motivated, as we saw with Steve Smith last week. We know guys will get motivated when they play their former team. And, of course, OCU is going back to the New York area to face his former squad, so he'll be motivated. We're going to see. So Coach Daniels has the Atlanta Falcons. I've got the New York Giants in that one. I guess the good news is that the whole boat won't be sinking and swimming on I Told You So much like we did last week. All singing Kumbaya for the home team and all going right up in smoke. The Denver Broncos and Arizona Cardinals, this is going to be a very, very interesting matchup. The Denver Broncos, their only loss this year was at Seattle in overtime, on the road against the 12th man and against one of the best defenses in football. I mean, this is a team that frankly has the potential to go 15-1. That doesn't often happen, but the Broncos look very, very, very strong, and the Arizona Cardinals are resurgent. They are the last undefeated team in the NFC. So this is going to be really an interesting contest. We'll see what the Arizona Cardinals are really made of. Drew Stanton is in all likelihood, going to get the start is Carson. He will. Palmer will be held out. I'm not getting the report in. He will be held out due to a shoulder injury, a nerve injury in his shoulder. Drew Stanton has been all right, but he hasn't turned the ball over, which is critical with that Arizona team. And Arizona's a defensive team, but I just think firepower. Give me the Denver Broncos in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you here, Eric, even though that defense for the Cardinals is really good. I just think that Denver being at home, coming off of the Seattle loss, that they bounce back here with a victory and knock the Arizona Cardinals out of the ranks of the unbeaten. So
yeah, we know they're going to be. We know the Broncos are going to be stewing too. The 2 weeks to stew on that. Oh yeah, they're going to be hot.
Absolutely, man. Hey, look, let's get the theme music ready for the Sixer.
All righty.
So
yeah, we talked about a lot of what close games where one might get where there could be some nipping. Some games I wouldn't put a nickel on. Well, there's one guy who makes his nickels and his dimes and his quarters off of what happens in the game, and that's our buddy, the Fixer.
I'm going down, baby. Yo, street in the rain,
what up, G?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How y'all doing this morning?
How's it going, man?
It's all right. I'm out here in Vegas. Wonderful weather.
I'll bet it is.
The weekend,
I'll bet it is gorgeous out
game
there.
last night, huh?
What a game last night. Hey, G, man, see, I know you didn't know this, but our co-host here, man, is a Dodgers fan.
Yeah, man, that was, I was calling the football game last night, so I didn't actually see it, but I checked as soon as I got in the car, and I was like, first of all, I guess Dodgers lost, so maybe I'm glad I didn't watch it, but that had to be the wackiest game of the postseason, maybe ever. That was a great contest. We'll talk about that later, but it's a great time. It's a great time to be a Cardinals fan. Congratulations, they won.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You got to realize I live in Dodger land, so it was a real good feeling last night. I even had my Cardinal horn head on last night.
Man, they were funny too. They looked like they were about to fight last night too. I mean, that was this gonna be a good series. This is gonna be a good series for all baseball fans. So, what do we have on our lineup on the blotter for this week, Fixer?
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll start out with the LSU Auburn game. They got Auburn favored by 7.5. They're giving LSU 7.5 points.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, from my opinion.
That's hardy. That's a hardy spread.
So we go to the NFL. Falcons Giants. They're giving the Falcons 4 points. Arizona Broncos. They're giving Arizona 9 points.
Hey, so hold on. When you say giving, you're saying that the Broncos are favored by 9 points over the Cardinals.
You are correct.
Okay, so let's back up to the game before this. So you're saying that the Giants are favored by 4 points.
You are correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Giving the Falcons 4 points.
Yep.
Alrighty, and who's next on the agenda?
All right, we'll go to the Tampa Bay Saints game. You ain't gonna believe this, but I guess since they're playing the Buccaneers, but they are giving Tampa Bay 11.5 points.
And that's about what we just said. That's about where we were.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. Let me ask you a question, Fixer. If it were your money, would you put it on the Saints? Even for a bad team like the Buccaneers, that's a hardy spread.
Well, this is Vegas, and 11.5 points is probably a teaser. With Tampa Bay being Tampa Bay, Saints probably win by 20, 21.
Whew.
So they'll put 11.5 points out there. So you go out there and put a whole bunch of money on Tampa Bay, and then you turn around and Vegas still wins. You understand? They don't lose here.
We know that for sure. Speaking of Vegas,
Major League Baseball odds, man. Who's gonna win this thing based on Vegas?
Based on Vegas, Orioles 13-5, Giants 9-2, Royals 5-1, Cardinals 11-2, Dodgers 6-1, Nationals 15-2, Tigers 18-1, and the team with the winningest record in Major League Baseball for 2014 20-1.
Well, at this point, I'd expect them to be. They're down 2-0. And Kansas City came from out of nowhere. Let me ask you a question. Do you have a ballpark idea of what the odds were of the Royals taking the whole thing prior to the wild card game?
No, I didn't run those odds, but I guarantee you they probably would swap with the Angels down to about 20-1.
Woo!
Right.
Boy.
Right. Okay, so before we let you go, man, I know you got the insight on the Cardinals baseball-wise, and, Eric's thinking this is going to be an interesting series. How long do you think that series is going to go?
Well, I think they'll get 2 games in St. Louis, maybe. Tonight's game is real pivotal. The odds on tonight, they are giving the Dodgers, they're giving the Dodgers, said the Dodgers going to win by 1.5 points, so they're giving the Cardinals 1.5 for tonight's game. Mm-hmm. But as we seen last night, anything can happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They also given Washington a point, 1.5 points. I think it's the home field advantage thing. Mm-hmm. But at this point in the season, I don't really think that makes a difference.
Right. Well, let me tell you, I think psychologically that crushed the Dodgers last night with their ace and the leading pitcher,
Clayton Kershaw,
in the league, losing, and with the final out being made with Puig after having such a large lead,
right?
For the Cardinals to come back, that's going to be difficult emotionally for the Dodgers to bounce back from, I think.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: this is not nothing new to the Cardinals and the Dodgers ace. This is 3 times in a row.
Yeah, he's gotten shelled. He has gotten shelled the last few times. His postseason rate, he goes from Superman to Clark Kent. Maybe Clark Kent Jr. in the crib, but when he for some reason the postseason, I cannot figure it out for the life of me. He had retired 16 consecutive batters at one point. He seemed to have his mojo, and then just completely came unglued like a popsicle stick house in that 7th inning.
And that was the largest comeback that the Dodgers have given up in their history in the playoffs.
I believe it.
And one other thing, you got to remember, Kershaw 21-3, Wainwright 21-9. That's a lot of innings. That's a lot of innings on one human being. That means they just pitch to the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. Right. A lot.
Because they're getting decisions in these games and not just bowing out after 5 or 6 innings. And Wainwright didn't look very, very, very Wainwright-like. That was a wacky, weird game. And congrats to the Cardinals. Look, you got to find a way to win a 5-run comeback. The last time I can remember that was when the Blue Jays came back against Philadelphia in '93 with the Joe Carter walk-off. Look, hats off to the Cardinals, and the Dodgers they're surrounded by fire wearing a gasoline uniform. So we'll see.
So, hey, man, you know the routine.
Stay off the grid. Stay out of jail.
Peace.
That was The Fixer.
I'm going down, baby. Your street in the rain. Boom, boom, baby. Ready to let it go. Shimmy, go for love. Listen to it loud. Light it up and take a puff.
Hey, man, so that was a lot of our baseball coverage there. So, I know we still have 2 or 3 other series to talk about. Before we get to that, we've got to talk Southern University football, and LSU's got a big game in the SEC. At Southern, man, we're talking homecoming, and they are taking on the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff for homecoming, and you just got to wonder, can the Southern University Jaguars right the ship, get some consistency at the quarterback position, and deliver a victory for all of the homecoming alumni?
Well, look, the good news is that it can't get much worse than going on the road and getting peppered by an Alcorn State team that has a lot of spice in its tank this year. They look really, really good. I sometimes have to question the wisdom of calling in a conference rival for a homecoming game, But Perry, refresh my memory. They had their way with Pine Bluff last year on the road. Am I remembering that correctly? It's about a year back, but I think they got the better of them, didn't they?
I think you're right, and I don't have an adequate way to confirm that at this time. But I think you're right. But that program has come a long way since last year. They have a very dynamic quarterback as well, and I think it's going to be a challenge for Southern tonight in A.W. Mumford Stadium. I have to mention that on this Arkansas Pine Bluff team, you have former McKinley High athlete David White returning. He's a redshirt freshman playing the cornerback position for Arkansas Pine Bluff, and he will return to Baton Rouge with that Pine Bluff team. So I think it's going to be tough, man, on Southern just because of getting the consistency from that quarterback position. The offense seems to be very one-dimensional.
Now, your Southern, they got. Let me ask you a question. How's our guy Leonard Tillery? Is he getting a lot of touches?
Absolutely, he's leading in carries.
And then you got Willie. Is it
Willie Quinn at the wide receiver spot?
He and Mike Jones. They have the speed there. We've seen them get open. We've seen them make plays. This is a homecoming game. I'm going to take the Jags. I know it won't be easy, but what I have noticed about Coach Odom is they have mental toughness. Even when they took a punch in the gut last year, they came right back. They flushed it, which is what you're supposed to do. I have confidence in his leadership and in this homecoming game, and I think the Jags are going to win this week. It is with a little bit of bated breath, kind of like with the Saints, because look, they're chinks in the armor with the Jaguars. They have some soft spots, but I expect them to win this week.
I'm going to stay with you on this and say that Southern will, it should be a very close football game, but I do think Southern will come out victorious. I'll tell you what, though, last year, after losing to Jackson State in the regular season, Southern was able to revenge themselves in the SWAC championship, taking on Jackson State. Well, this year, it's almost set up to do the same, losing to Alcorn in the regular season. However, you have the North Louisiana SWAC school playing very good football.
Wow, I know. These guys are reborn. Grambling looks like a whole new team, man.
They do, man. And, so it's going to be tough for Southern to make their way back to the SWAC championship based on that. So we'll see how that plays out. But let's go across town, man, and let's talk SEC football and LSU, Auburn, and our former guest on the Louisiana All American Sports radio show, Nick Ruffin, and his Auburn Tigers sitting atop of the SEC West.
Yeah, the Auburn Tigers, the defending SEC West champions, defending SEC champions, very close to being the defending national champions, were not for a spectacular performance by Jameis Winston last year. The Auburn Tigers look really good and really sharp, and I'll tell you, when the fixer said 7.5 points, I figured that's about right. 7.5 points sounds like a lot in a Southeastern Conference game, but, Auburn has a lot. They really are very, very, very good in the trenches. They're going to get a lot of push on LSU, and LSU's defensive line, particularly in the middle, has not been that great. I expect, first of all, I would, if I were a betting man, I'd take Auburn and the points. I think it could get. I'm not going to say it could be a blowout, but I expect Auburn to be in the driver's seat and have their foot on the gas from start to finish in this game. The only silver lining for LSU, the only thing that's changing, well, two silver linings. One, their stable of running backs is solid, and with the Mississippi State loss, it could be easy to forget that. But Mississippi State's front seven, I said it before that game, their front seven is the real deal, and they showed it. But Auburn, as good as they are, I think Mississippi State's front seven is better. I think LSU will get back to running the ball. But Brandon Harris, the freshman quarterback, came in after Anthony Jennings struggled badly in the first quarter against New Mexico State, on the hook for 3 turnovers. Harris came in. He ran it effectively. He extended plays with his feet. He threw lasers with that ball, much like he did in the waning moments of the Mississippi State game. I'm excited to see what this kid can do, although I don't think he can go to Jordan-Hare Stadium and upset the Auburn Tigers in his first start. I am looking forward to watching this kid play ball.
So am I, Eric, and we knew going in that he was actually better suited for the Cam Cameron offense than Jennings is.
Yes.
So it was just a matter of time before this kid actually got on the field. And it's going to be interesting to see how this Tiger team develops over the season with Fournette coming in, running the ball. They're going to be more of a play-action type offense, which should be wide open and with people filling the box with several players trying to stop Fournette. And with the strong arm of Brandon Harris being able to throw over the top, I think there are some exciting things down the road for this Tiger football team. However, this week comes a little too soon, and this evening comes a little too soon, and the Auburn Tigers should win this game going away.
So while I hope I am absolutely wrong, you never know. Maybe I will be wrong. I think I'm right. But what we do have on the record is last week where we were right and where we were wrong. And so it's without further ado that we treat our audience to a very comical version, a comically tragic version, unfortunately for local fans, of I Told You So.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
Drew Brees is not Austin. Strike that. Austin Davis is no Drew Brees. If the Cowboys play anything like that last week, this game could be over with at halftime. I think it could be whatever. I don't know what the over/under is in this game, guys, but I'm taking the over. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wow. I'm taking the over. I'm taking the over. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think the Saints are just going to have more to keep piling on, and I think the Saints defense will eventually suffocate the big weapons Dallas has, force them to use their lesser players, and I think the Saints will have more points at the end, but that's just my humble opinion.
No.
Well, let's say this. Who do you got, and what is your score for the game? We can get past all the other stuff, and we're gonna see who you picking.
Yeah, well, I'm taking the Saints in this game. I think they've really had the better of the Cowboys, and I think the Saints. It's going to be an arms race, but I think the Saints have more weapons, and I think the Saints defense should be able to contain Dallas enough to let Drew Brees take a lead. I also think that Dallas's defense is so bad that they're not going to be able to stop Drew Brees. Remember, this is So I'm taking the Saints, and I'm actually taking the Saints to cover in this one.
Oh, good. What about you, Professor? Who are you looking at?
Well,
Who you
man,
like?
I mean, I'm going to go with the Saints. I'm going to go with regional loyalties, and I'm going to go with the Saints. Saints 34, Dallas 21.
You were right.
Good. And I'm also taking the Saints. I'm taking the Saints in a nail biter. I think it's going to go down to it. I think I'm going to step out on the limb. And actually, I was thinking I was going to go over, but I think I'm going to go under now.
So the NFL's oldest rivalry, the Green Bay Packers, will travel to Soldier Field to play the Bears. I think in Soldier Field, I like the Bears. And
But I'm just going to stick with emotional ties, and I'm going to go with Green Bay, even though this game is in Soldier Field.
As the professor checks that one out, but without looking at the line score, I'm going to actually take the Jets. I expect the Jets to hang on and get this win at home, although I expect a very competitive game. And And I think probably the biggest game on the lineup of the day, I would think, it's another one where we talk about scratching heads and inexplicable starts. You have the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to travel out to the West Coast to play the 1 and 2 San Francisco 49ers. I think it'll be close, but I do think San Francisco gets back on the horse this week and hands Philadelphia its first loss. But I'll just tell you, don't tar and feather me, Jaguar Nation, but I think the Braves are going to scalp the Jags this week.
I'm kind of in the air about this one, but my heart's telling me Southern, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with Southern. I think that...
It's a tough one. I'm going to have to take Prairie View, man.
Oh.
Well, so yeah, we definitely had more swinging and missing than we did hitting of the ball, so to speak.
Hold on. I heard a Prairie View prediction in there last week that got a bell ring, and Prairie View lost to Grambling last year.
I'm assuming. I think we were talking Southern and Alcorn, and we had been talking about the prior game against Prairie View and the future game against Alcorn. I think that was a slip of the tongue there. I'm almost positive Professor meant to say Alcorn last week. Yeah, no, Prairie View. Grambling, man. Wow, I'm excited to see them back in it. Football's better. SWAC football's better when Grambling is relevant.
And you're absolutely right, and the Bayou Classic is extremely more entertaining when they are competitive. So, we're going to have to miss our educational piece this week for this week's show, but I'm sure he'll have to be back with the cold dose for us next week.
Yeah, class was canceled this week, but it'll be back in session this time next Saturday, as Professor Johnson always drops some knowledge and some nuggets that raise our IQ points just a little bit after he comes on the show.
All right, let's talk Angels, man. What's going on there?
I'll tell you, that LA Angels series is, look, you know, the Angels are not playing badly. It's just that Kansas City's doing everything right, and in the critical moments when the Angels need to execute, they're not executing. You know, you have plays like last night with that ill-advised attempt to take third base. And the runner got gunned down. That was the go-ahead run. Why would you even risk that out at third base in that situation in a 1-1 game? You know, in Kansas City, look, Kansas City has not won one postseason game in 9 innings. They have had to scratch and claw and scrape and throw the kitchen sink, and it's working. They're executing. They're using their speed game. And right now, I just think, LA is playing good. Kansas City's doing everything right, and they're winning the execution battles, and that's what you're seeing right now. And now, tomorrow evening, you're going to have big game James Shields on the mound against C.J. Wilson in KC. Man, the Angels could be going home, Perry.
Hey, you know what, Eric? Before I give my take on this series, man, we forgot to mention.
Oh no!
In 6 minutes, man, we have
Noel Jackson with Music Satisfaction. Here on 96.9 FM WHYR-LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio.
Yeah. So, hey, man, look, I'm just extremely proud of this Kansas City Royals team, and it's exciting to see this approach at baseball again. We haven't seen a team like this in the playoffs since the 80s, where the Cardinals went to 3 World Series playing small baseball the way that the Royals are playing. And the benefit of that, Eric, is you don't have to necessarily worry about slumps, because you can turn singles into doubles with your legs.
I completely concur. Here's the irony, is that Kansas City was dead last in the majors in home runs, and yet the backbreakers in both games 1 and 2 of this series were Eric Hosmer home runs. But Kansas City got themselves into their position by getting on base, stealing bases, putting guys in position. I've not seen an American League team, because they have the DH over there. I've not seen an American League team play small ball like this successfully I can't remember the last time, and they're making it work.
Neither can I, and it's exciting. It's exciting to watch. It's like they're never out of a game. Anytime they get on base, they can get a runner in scoring position, and they're getting timely hits. I picked the Angels to win the pennant, and it's just not going to happen based on how well the Royals are playing.
Yeah, the Angels are on their way to getting real life halo, or getting their playoff halos and going to heaven, because they're in a lot of trouble. And I look again. It's not like they gave up a whole lot, but Kansas City. One thing I'll say, I think Mike Trout looks like he's pressing a little bit. He's popped up a lot of balls and struck out. He strikes out a lot in the regular season, but he looks even more so now in the playoffs with a lot of pressure on it. I think he's pressing. He needs to take his foot off the gas. But Kansas City's pitchers are doing an excellent job, and with James Shields on the mound, if he could just keep it going, man, I'm happy for that fan base. I really am. One quick observation. Number 6, Lorenzo Cain for Kansas City, the center fielder. One of the announcers commented that you were talking about the '85 Royals. He was reminiscent of another number 6, and that was Willie Wilson. Tall guy, speedy, rangy. It's been really interesting to watch. Baseball, it's always good when they have a feel-good story, and this is the feel-good story of the 2014 playoffs.
And you know what, Eric? The Orioles, I totally underestimated.
Look, Coach, I expected Baltimore. I said on my blog, thedailyhattrick.com, I expected Baltimore to win this series. I expected it to go 5, and that might not happen, but for this reason. Detroit's bullpen is a black hole. I've been saying it all year that their bullpen is the Achilles heel, but they've gone from Achilles heel to an artificial limb with duct tape holding it together. That bullpen has been unbelievably bad. I expected, and I even said this in writing in Game 1, that Max Scherzer needed to go 8 innings for Detroit to win. He came out before the 8th, and you saw the 8th inning of Game 1. It was incredible. I have never seen a meltdown like that. And then yesterday, Detroit they were up 3 runs going in the late innings, and they just vanished. So Baltimore's got them. They're going to have to. I think Baltimore wins this series, because even if Detroit finds its pulse, I think David Price versus Gio Gonzalez. I mean, Price is a former Cy Young winner, but Gonzalez ain't no punk either. And even if they find a way to miracle it back to Baltimore, I think the Orioles are going to take this series, Perry.
I agree with you at this point now. The Orioles' bats are too hot in order for them to lose 3 in a row. The Nationals and Giants, your take there, Eric?
I expect the Nationals to win this series. I didn't expect it to be easy. I did not expect Strasburg to lose, though, and that kind of tips the scales a little bit, because now you have a situation this afternoon with Tim Hudson and Jordan Zimmerman facing Jordan Zimmerman. Now, I think that matchup favors. That pitching matchup favors the Nationals. They should win this game. If they don't, it's over. But then they got to go back to San Francisco and face Madison Bumgarner, who's just been tough as nails. And that was a game I didn't think Washington had a chance to win. So I think San Francisco's tipped this series in its favor. The bottom line is that the Nats have to take care of business and then go out to the West Coast and take one. And Game 3 with Bumgarner on the line Monday night, that's not an easy one for the Pickings. So the Nationals have got a lot of work to do. The good news is it was competitive, it was close, but their bats have got to wake up and look alive.
Hey, I'm rooting for the Nationals. That Giants team just scares me based on their tradition and the number of World Series rings they have recently. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I want the Nationals to win, to set up a Cardinals-Nationals NLCS, and maybe I can attend a game or two.
Yes, indeed.
Hey, that's fine.
Hey, you got real quick before we go, we got tonight's game, St. Louis and L.A. I know who you want to win, but let me remind you that the Dodgers have former Cy Young winner Zach Greinke taking the mound, and y'all got Lance Lynn.
And that's why we're going to win.
We'll see about that, Coach. All right, that'll be fun. Good, I told you so. So we're coming up to that time. It's 12 o'clock noon, and as we always say,
ADT, JNS, love you.
And as we always remind you, have a good afternoon. Enjoy the games today, folks. We'll see you next week, Saturday morning, 11 o'clock on 96.9 FM WHYR-LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio.
Hail to the king and lots of love. Hail to the king and lots of love. Protect us from the evil. Hail to the king, lots of love. May he protect us from evil.